Our first goal is not to get auto-relegated.
A 4-for-1. Meet your makers. They look like they might want to end.
Meet your makers. They are looking fantastic today. They are not out of the LCS yet.
The most important thing is how you hit playoffs.
That's a triple kill for the king of mids in Europe. Elements are unseating H2K and keeping their playoff hopes alive.
We just need to carry it on, and like we might have a chance in playoff. Just take one game at a time.
Welcome back to the European League of Legends Championship Series, broadcasting to you live from Berlin, Germany. The crowd is hyped, as they always are here in EU Best Crowd World. They wanted to get in, take their seats, and take a front row seat for all the action here and there. It's Quickshot giving a little tour to the tiniest shoutcaster EU, Alex, there with the Element shirt on, hoping that they can pull out a win again today. Fantastic. There is, of course, H2K, who will be looking to set the record straight after their loss yesterday and losing that losing streak, of course. And then finally, there Odawamne is setting up, and MYM also entering the building a little calmer, ready for the battle here and knowing that they absolutely have to get another win on the board. I'm Efe Shogzaportre at the helm of the analyst desk, and joining me is our guest for the week, former world champion Lauri Cyanide Happonen, as well as the 80 carries for the Unicorns of Love and the Copenhagen Wolves, Vardax and Freeze. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice to have you guys here now. With just 3 games left to play in the spring split for the teams, the playoff race is heating up. Let's see where we left off yesterday with a look at the standings. Still alone at the top of the tables is, of course, SK Gaming, with Fnatic hot on their trail just to win back. The Unicorns of Love are tied up in 4th at 8 and 7, with the Copenhagen Wolves rounding out the top 6 at 7 and 8. Now, Elements are alone in 7th, and Meet Your Makers have tied Giants in 9th, as both teams fight to stay out of auto relegation. Now, and of course, we saw some changes to the EU LCS with the introduction of patch 5.5 yesterday. Tanks in the jungle. There was 100% win rate for Cinderhulk. It was purchased by half of all the junglers yesterday, and that is compared to the 10% of junglers that bought the Juggernaut enchantment beforehand. It has had a fantastic impact.
Yeah, this item brings the much needed variety we need in the jungle to actually get to play different champions. I think it's really amazing. It scales really well into the late game. Like, the damage when it scales up is even better than Sunfire, and sometimes when you stack a lot of HP you end up getting like 800 or something for the price of 1.4k after the smite upgrade, so it's pretty insane.
Yep, very big impact there of the Cinderhulk. What to you guys has been the biggest trend yesterday? Because obviously there's the jungle items, but there's a lot of other changes that can cascade off of that. Freeze, what has been the most interesting thing for you?
Well, I wouldn't say interesting, I just have to hit the junglers a bit longer before they die. So nothing unusual, but besides the jungle, there didn't change much.
Relax.
Yeah, I do agree with Freeze. I think the jungle item itself is kind of interesting, but I do agree that now that they're a bit more tanky, and with carry meta, you kind of have to hit them a bit longer.
Yeah, for you guys as well, that is maybe a little annoying. You guys did play each other yesterday in Freeze. I want to comment on that UL versus CW game with you first, because a lot of people expected that it would be a lot closer. What do you think went wrong?
We had a plan going to the game, and we didn't play it right. That's what I can say. We had bad decision makings, bad engages, and we got caught a lot. And we didn't go to the late game where we wanted to be, because they had 5 dragons at 30 minutes, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, tell us about your game plan, just getting all those dragons, and for you, a lot on your shoulders on Graves with the Nunu buffing you up.
I think that was a big part of us picking Nunu as well. With Nunu, we get a lot of early dragon pressure, especially when they went for the lane swap. We kind of had the opportunity to go for early dragon, and with time, we kind of got to play our own style, and we managed to get the 5 dragons really early.
Yeah, and a very important win for you guys as well. And then something else yesterday, Elements versus H2K. H2K was going for that winning streak. They didn't make it though. What do you think went wrong for them? Or was it just Elements finally finding their form on 5.5?
Yeah, they had this one terrible fight at mid lane, and when you get ahead with a comp like the Elements had, you can just run over the enemy team. Like I before said, the warding of H2K was just superior, but the team comp was just too strong and they got run over every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Froggen racking up a couple of kills, and then they just kept going with the Jinx as well. Well, that brings us to today's games. 1 of 3 each team has left before the end of the spring split. The Unicorns of Love will take on the 2nd place Fnatic as they try and close in on a seat in the postseason. Number 1 SK Gaming will face the 6th place Copenhagen Wolves, and Elements will face Gambit Gaming in a matchup where a win would secure Gambit's spring playoff spot. So, guys, just chilling here at the desk for now, but 2 incredibly difficult matchups, I should say. You guys did beat out Fnatic a couple of weeks ago. How are you going into that matchup?
I think for us, since we already played them once, and we actually did really well the first time when we managed to pull out a win, we're actually very confident, and we have strategized a lot before this game, so we're coming in very confident in this match.
Yeah. Do you think it'll be an incredibly explosive match? Because the way you guys both played yesterday, it could be over in 15 minutes.
We usually tend to play very aggressive, so I definitely expect there to be a lot of action in this game.
All right. And then Freeze going up against SK Gaming after yesterday's result, absolutely needing that win as well. They're still number 1. We saw some cracks in the armor at IEM. Do you think that they've recovered enough?
So far we're 1-1 versus every team, and we're planning on keeping that way. So you can expect a fight from us.
All right, we will see that a bit later. But before the games get started, we want to hear from you. So get on Twitter and send in your questions for our guest analyst, Cyanide, with the hashtag AskCyanide. So now's your chance, guys. Is there anything you want to ask Cyanide, Freeze?
Do you like the meta now?
Yeah, I've always been a tank jungle player to the heart, and I actually wish I could be playing right now, but I'm too bad, so...
Fardax, anything?
I actually don't have a good question in mind.
No worries, that was a pretty solid answer. For the rest of you at home, be sure to tweet your answers at LOL Esports with the hashtag AskCyanide, and we'll put Cyanide in the hot seat later today. Oh. Now, until then, it is time to get into our very first matchup of the day between Meet Your Makers and H2K. Now, considering H2K's hard loss yesterday, now may be MYM's chance to pick up a win and climb above Giants in the standings. Let's start by taking a look at that lineup for MYM. Of course, in the top lane, JWoww, then Horo, Corey, Mr. Rawls, Noxiac, and Yamato Cannon. They're tied for last place with Giants, 1-1 in the head-to-head. But yesterday, again, Noxiac was saying in the video, I will save MYM, but it seemed to be Horo once again that did really well for that team.
Yeah, Horo was just going in with no fear all the time, and Gambit was just so out of coordination. Like, the teleports were coming in always way too late, and it was like Horo going on Betsy, and Betsy being half HP, and then it's like, okay, let's try to turn this around for some particular reason, but it always fell flat.
Yeah, they got their lead and then closed out. Do you think it was more Gambit not playing that well and MYM capitalizing, or did you see some glimmers of future hope?
Yeah, I think MYM did what they had to do, like just going confidently in, but like I said before, the teleports were really, really awful from Gambit.
Well, Vardags, you guys did lose to MYM as well also a couple of weeks ago. What do you think? Is this kind of the potential that you've seen in that team?
I do think MYM lately has been playing really solid. So I wasn't actually surprised that they played so good against Gambit yesterday, and I actually expected them to do really well. And I actually expect them to do really well now towards the end of the split.
All right, well, they have to overcome H2K in this one. Let's take a look at the lineup for H2K Gaming. Odoamne, Lulex, Ryu, Hjarnan, Kasing, and Prali. Their winning streak was broken versus Elements yesterday. They got the lead as usual, Cyanide, but actually it was one mistake that cost them the game.
Yeah, this was the infamous mid-fight.
It's going to come up in a second, but what happened here?
All right, yeah, so here Kasing just goes on Reckless, which would be good, but Hjarnan is completely out of position here, and even his position is not the best. And Kog'Maw is just not doing anything this fight. Reckless manages to survive, and Froggen gets free room to do whatever he wants, just going in, even killing himself, feed for the win to get mana for the ulti and getting a triple kill. And like I said, against a comp like this, you can't get behind.
No, indeed, and I did also feel like H2K was more for comfort picks and 5.4 picks, and they were kind of, adapting to what was new. Freeze, what do you think? Is this just a bump in the road for H2K? A lot of people have said they might be the best team in Europe.
Well, I would say they were the best team at 5.4, but we scripted them enormous amount of games, and they seem that they're off of the meta. They are unconfident playing the certain champions that are played right now. They don't know how to play versus them, and they're just seeming to be a bit off from the meta.
A little bit lost. Well, they did crush MYM back in week 2 in under 30 minutes, and that was before the Mimer JWoww swap and before Noxiac coming in for MYM, so it'll be a super interesting lineup. It's time to send it over to the casters, but first we'll get some insight from MYM's Noxiac on the impact a single substitution can bring to an entire team.
Kazing is a different kind of person as well, and he's like super vocal and calls so much, and it just brings a completely new atmosphere to the game, and you can see it in their results.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Trevor Quickshaw Henry. Alongside me on this journey through the end of the spring split is Martin de Fischer-Lunge, and we are just moments away from picks and bans to Meet Your Makers and H2K. And de Fischer, let's start by asking, what do MYM need to do to pull out a win here?
I mean, if they have the same kind of setup like they did yesterday, basically do exactly the same they did against Gambit, punish the mistakes if they're uncoordinated, play around these team fights here, and have your two carries, Mr. Rales and Corey, and protect them, because they are the guys who can win games for you. We know Horo is fantastic in the jungle, but let Corey and Mr. Rales be on the damage dealers.
Yeah, and it's great to hear from Noxiac there, just as we transitioned over, talking about Kazing and what Kazing brought to H2K. You could put a pretty strong argument forward that Noxiac brought a similar level of punch to Meet Your Makers, because since he's joined the squad, MYM just seem to be hungrier and more aggressive and cohesive as a team.
Again, it's what you sometimes see when there's a new player joining in. It just makes everyone kind of get a new view on the game or get some new motivation and really use it. And they obviously were stuck as a team, Meet Your Makers. Now, with Noxiac here, clearly practice has gone a lot better for them. We heard Vardax just say he thinks MYM can finish very strong in the end of this split. So certainly a lot more respect from the other teams around Meet Your Makers, and they deserve it now. They've started to pick up a few wins. They're tied with Giants, obviously, down in the bottom of the standings. And another win here would suddenly put them in number 9, which means they will no longer get auto-relegated down to the Challenger Series.
Well, we'll have to find out if Meet Your Makers can actually pick up that win. We'll touch on the tiebreaker scenarios of Giants once we get into game and how important this matchup is. MYM out the gates, taking Thresh away from Kazing, champion he played yesterday despite the loss, and Zed away from Ryu.
Normally they also ban Italy. The last few games, they banned Sichuan in Italy, even before 5.5, against Gambit at least they did it. This time around, switching up a little bit, Horo, he can play in Italy, but he's not been one of his main picks. So Olaf instead, which obviously works so well with the new Cinderhulk. You just stack an insane amount of HP, like Cinderhulk into Warmog's armor, and you are nearly unkillable on this Olaf.
And we'll have to see if H2K can show that they've learned to adapt to 5.5. Probably maybe not expecting that LeBlanc ban. He seemed to be a little caught by surprise. And with those two tank junglers banned, Rek'Sai available, Nidalee still available. We'll see what H2K decide to take off the table.
Well, what they can do and what they tried to do yesterday was bait a Rek'Sai first pick against Elements. Problem was, Elements didn't pick it. They just said, you know, if we take Maokai instead, you can get the Rek'Sai, we don't care, because Maokai is, at the moment, probably the best top laner. But now with that last ban here from H2K, it's a very obvious first pick for Meet Your Makers. Obviously quite a few mid lane bans against Ryu, but he still has Ahri. He can most likely pick a Victor if he wants to. So there are different options. We know Corey loves to play Victor, and he should go for it if it's open by the time you can pick it.
Well, we'll see if H2K can find a way around that. Victor gaining more and more popularity here in Europe, and something that jumped to fruition yesterday was the Hecarim. It is a champion we've seen in other regions for fairly long, but took quite a long time to seep through into the European LCS.
Which was a little bit weird, because we have quite a lot of carry top laners who can go for Hecarim, who can be a split pushing threat, who can obviously use their home guard teleports really well. Only Huni has really been shining on it, I think it's safe to say, even though we saw it a few times yesterday. Odoamne, normally he's a tank player. He's undefeated on Maokai. He's now lost only one game on Gnar as well, played like 6 games off it. So clearly he's a tank player. They're going to save the top lane pick as well this time. Obviously Lulu is a bit of a flex pick. We know Rio plays it in the mid lane. I would also assume Kazing can pick it.
I also think it's really smart locking in that Cogmore, because both Mr. Rals and Hyanan played it yesterday. Mr. Rals obviously going 7-1-3. It was comboed with a Nami, but for H2K, the possibility of that Juggermore protect the AD carry, they've got the 2 key ingredients.
They do. Nami or Janna then should come in. I like Nami the most if you want to play super aggressive with it, because obviously that slow on your auto attack will do a lot for you. Obviously Janna is the more safe option. You do see how Meet Your Makers is responding though. They're saying, okay, we know you're trying to build around a protect the AD carry composition, so we take Victor, because we're not expecting too much hard engage or to, you know, dive in or backline dive from H2K's side. So if Victor gets to sit in the backline untouched, we've just seen multiple times how much damage he can do. And if there's one misplay from the enemy team, they get completely melted. If they go into a choke point, Victor will destroy them. So you can see from Meet Your Makers already here, their setup has a lot of AoE CC and a lot of burst damage from the Victor.
Just a little bit scary to see that Gnar locked in. H2K, they failed to use it as effectively as he wanted to, and Gnar's really fallen by the wayside in recent weeks, but JWoww still wants to try that out.
I don't really agree with picking Gnar here. I don't think you had to show your top lane. You could have gone for the support, you could have gone for the AD carry instead. Gnar, the reason he's fallen out of favor, especially after the last change to his ulti, where there's now longer cooldown before you can get Mega Gnar again, like as one of the examples, so it's a lot easier to play around it. And if you play Gnar into a kite composition, which is a protect the AD carry setup, which is what H2K is building here, it is very simple to just have vision down, spot the Gnar, and say, oh, is his Mega Gnar coming? Back away, back away. As soon as Mega Gnar is gone, then you go for the engage, because suddenly he won't be able to do anything to your AD carry. So I feel like this Gnar has kind of been picked into one of the worst setups you can. This will simply require Meteor Makers to have map control that cannot fall behind, because if you don't have proper vision, or if you don't have the vision control, you're never going to get that flank with the Gnar, with the Rek'Sai to start the fights.
All right, we'll see if MYM can find those opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, they can go Leona here if they want.
Nunu went 2-0 yesterday. Both times building that Cinder Hulkin, really giving so much zoning control with an absolute zero. I'm interested to see how H2K round out their team composition, if they're going to give Lulu top to H2K there and go for another support for Kasing, or alternatively if H2K is going to stick to his tanks. We know he's played Sion in the past. Can have another beefy front line. That Nunu plus Sion could be scary. MYM do look like they've locked in their Jinx and Braum, so gonna have a very safe, very scaling team composition here from Meteor Makers.
Yeah, quite like the lane setup for them at least. If you do manage to land a stun, you put their traps down from Jinx after, and you can proc that stun very fast, especially in the late game. And obviously you're also here to jump in front of their AD carry, jump in front of Yarnan here, block a lot of his damage in the start of the fight, doing his W timing with this Braum. But Braum is normally picked as more of a disengaged support, not a hard engaged. And if you look at Meteor Maker's setup here, they don't really have any clear way of starting a fight. It's gonna have to be like a tunnel flashed in from a Rek'Sai. It's gonna have to be like a Mega Gnar flashed in from JWoww here. So as long as H2K have control of where Meteor Makers is on the map, they can keep kiting around these cooldowns very easily. We saw Elements do the same thing yesterday against H2K, and it worked wonders. So I do feel a little bit for Meteor Makers here. I really want to see how they play around the team fights, and if they do go to objectives beforehand, to get that vision control so they can force the fights.
I think we're going to be in for a long one, Deficio, because with H2K locking in Janna, there's not a lot of engage, barring that charm, and H2K is taking the Lulu top. So we do have that protect the AD carry with a little bit of assassination power. H2K had good vision against Elements yesterday, and they're going to need to maintain that vision control against Meteor Makers, but I think we're setting ourselves up for a scaling match.
Oh, for sure. Both comps want to scale up. The two carries for Meteor Makers, Victor and Jinx, obviously some of the best in the late game, their respective roles. Same can be said for Yarnan here on H2K side, but the Ahri pickup is simply here to apply pressure in the mid game and in the early game as well, so you don't have to give up completely all control and just like get ganked in every lane here, because you obviously want to scale up at least with your AD carry. So having Ahri and Nunu together should allow them to get proper wards down around this mid lane. My concern is really just MYM here. How are they going to start these fights? Victor should never be able to get to the enemy AD carry when there's a Lulu and Nunu and a Janna protecting him. And then we know what happens late game when you buff up a hyper carry. Jinx won't be able to follow because now the Nunu is on the side of H2K. So I feel like they're almost looking at Elements yesterday saying, okay, how did you play it? Let's take the same kind of composition and we do exactly the same. We play around this Mega Gnar and we just kite.
Well, there's the team compositions about to flash on your screen. Guys, jump on Twitter to kick us off here on day 2 in week 8. Hashtag MYM win or hashtag H2K win. The tank wars and hyper carry battles, as we got some fans in the audience inspired by Nunu. They want to consume that cake as we get into the match. Look at that, the banners are lit up. MYM versus H2K. This is for Meteor Makers to avoid that auto relegation. You heard Horo at the beginning of the day. He does not want to be in 10th place. And a win against H2K puts them 1 game ahead of Giants. 1 game safe until later today when we see if Giants can even up the score.
And it will also really show that Meteor Makers have improved as a team. Beating Gambit yesterday, and then if you take down H2K, you are legit in the EU LCS. But obviously Fiss just said how he's been scrimming H2K here. He doesn't really feel like they've adapted too well to the new patch, despite them having 2 weeks of practice. Let's see if they've learned something. They obviously, again, gone for this very safe protected AD carry composition, which is so annoying to play against for the other team.
Well, the composition H2K put together, maybe with the exception of Nunu, was very effective in 5.4, with the addition of Nunu and Cinderhawk arguably even more effective on 5.5. So H2K, can they play? Can they use the comp effectively? Odoamne and Lulu, it's also not a traditional Odoamne champion. We tend to see him as one of the initiating powers on the squad, one of the frontliners. And that's not really what you want to be doing with Lulu.
Hopefully not.
So let's see how he handles himself.
Yeah, really, Lulu in these protected AD carry comps doesn't really do a whole lot of damage, but you're always going to use your E on your AD carry, and it's just going to be you Diddler Lancing and auto-attacking as your main damage source, which is also why the Lich Bane comes in as one of the last few items very often. Obviously not early on. You want as much flat AP as possible. H2K want to stop the Crooks here from being started. Might have to face check onto Meteor Makers. They can now see nothing was done. No jungle start. Oh, not sure if they spotted if Horror could have been there, but at least standard lane matchup, no XP advantage for anyone.
Yeah, and something we do have to touch on, something that actually Stress reminded us of coming into this matchup. Meteor Makers, formerly Super Hot Crew, they were the guys that actually benched Kasing at the end of last year as they transitioned over into the new year and the new season. And Kasing, 8-1 in 2015, suffered his first loss yesterday. You have to feel there's going to be some personal pride on the line here for actually both of these supports who've had great showings.
And a bit of extra knowledge for both Miteralis and Kasing here playing against each other. You learn a few tricks when you do a queue a lot with someone. You learn at least their mentality towards, you know, when should I get a CS instead of trading and so on. You can use that information to your advantage. Obviously, it's been a few months ago they played together, so things could have changed, and we don't know how Noxiac and Miteralis has really changed, if they have changed the playstyle at all, in the bottom lane.
Well, since Noxiac has joined Mr. Rolls, I definitely think Mr. Rolls' individual performance has stepped up. He really didn't show up in the opening few weeks. And there was obviously team difficulties causing trouble, and a lot of trading here between Corey and Ryu. Keep catching glimpses of skill shots being blasted back and forth, and we did also catch Lulex picking up the first crab of the game in the top half of the river. Or may have opportunity in the bottom.
Another strong point about Nuno. He can really clear those extremely fast when he gets in there. Gets the extra goal, and of course more information, which allows you to play more aggressive now in your two solo lanes. As you have double ward in the river, and obviously Horror on Rek'Sai. If they expect him to do a full clear, he drops fairly low. And therefore you would always assume he's going back to base, which means you can delay your ward timing a little bit more. And then around, oh, get two of them.
Advantage Lulex, he's got crabs.
And then around the 4-minute mark, you go down and you place your ward instead. You finally got to use it, didn't you?
8 weeks! 8 weeks I've been waiting! Sorry, producer. I'll take the slap for that.
Wow,
Corey gets eaten by the charm. Ryu's thrown down the ignite, but he gets stunned up as the death ray from Corey goes out. Charm's low, Ryu rather, is low on mana. Decides not to flash in, but that was a good skill shot from the Dark.
Yeah, we have to remember here, Corey, he likes to run Ghost and Flash, which makes you a little bit weaker in the lane. You don't have that combat summoner to help you, and therefore he's often just aiming to sit and farm, not really do a whole lot, and he likes to also upgrade fairly quickly to his second Hex Core item, so he gets both the upgraded E and Q, just for even more mobility in these fights, because he's often the guy protecting himself. Now he does have Noxiac to help him out. Obviously, and now here's the first gank. A pingward has been placed from Horror, and he's going in on Ryu.
Chilling Smite, insta-flash. Summon a Spellblown, successful game from Horror.
No ward placed yet from Ryu here, so because they were expecting Horror to go back to base after his initial clear, he did delay it. Otherwise, like 3:22:25 is where you are expecting a jungle to have double buff and potentially gank you the first time, and that's where you want to have your first set of wards down. But they delayed it, and just simply didn't find the time, apparently, to place, and therefore had to flash away. Lulex not really been helping, he's just been farming on his own, already sitting on that Trailblazer and a Ruby Crystal.
So, good start then by this jungle Nunu. You do expect him to have somewhat of an advantage of those clear speeds thanks to Consume. And something we haven't looked at yet is the JWoww versus Odoamne matchup. Both respective top laners have backed. Boots and a second Doran's Ring for Odoamne. We'll see if JWoww grabs himself the Hex Drinker, which he does. And that's turned into just a bit of a farm lane. There's no real kill pressure from either until some assistance from the jungler. Though Nunu plus Lulu, going to be a tough time taking down a Gnar.
Yeah, it will. I mean, you can slow him a lot, and keep chasing him. As long as he has a tower to fall back to, he should be okay. Which is also why Nuno players often focus more on either counter-ganking and gathering information of where the enemy jungler is, or simply just farm up to your Cinderhulk. In this case, from Lulix, again, I'm expecting early Sidestone, because Nuno really is one of those junglers who can shut down and aggressive one. You see here, so Horo jumps him. All he's going to do is just snowball him in the face and run away. Like, that's all you do. So there's no real kill pressure for Horo on Lulix in a one-on-one. So you can always play very aggressive and keep getting information. Rallis, though, taking a lot of damage.
Oh, I got a bit excited there, Deficio. Kiana and Kasing come out ahead. Who got the crab? Did we actually keep track of that? It was a blue side. So Horo actually got his hands on the Scuttle Crab after that little trade. And as you rightly pointed out, Summer Spell's traded. But it's a lot of back and forth between his lanes, not garnering first blood yet.
Already got a bit of a annoying back time for him. Obviously, when you play Victor, the problem is you need 1,000 gold at least when you're back the first time because you want to upgrade your Hex Core. And it doesn't really have any build path, it's just straight 1,000 gold, there you go. So you can't like go back on 800 or 850, get a Codex, get a potion, and come back to lane. No, you need the 1,000 gold, and it also means you often won't get any potions if you have to go back right on that mark. So you can see for him, only a ward being picked up. Otherwise, if he does take a bit of poke damage, he will not be able to sustain himself in that lane, giving all the pressure over to Ryu if he manages to land another charm. But still, again, this Nuno, one of the reasons Nuno is so good in this patch is just he can control aggressive junglers so well. As we saw before, you just snowball the guy in the face and run away. You can walk into his jungle, you get an early sidestone, you place a few deep wards, and you see this Rek'Sai every time. And if Rek'Sai doesn't make plays early on, he gets outscaled compared to a Nuno in the late game. There's a very big difference on the impact you have in fights, where Nuno buffing up a hyper carry obviously is a lot better than a Rek'Sai.
Yeah, and we saw that happening yesterday several times, in fact. The Nunu just outscaling the respective opponents. And for H2K, you know, you touched on the fact both of these comps want to scale the show and how H2K have got all of these tools to disengage. The fact that MYM don't have the hardest engage is actually going to make H2K's mid to late game quite a lot more powerful. Having the Lulu, having the Nunu, having the Janna, on the condition they play the disengage correctly. They have to zone appropriately and make sure they don't double stack.
Which is why for both teams in this game here, it's going to be so much about pre-planning objectives, getting in there first and setting up your ward control around it. Because if you see from MYM's side, if they don't get in first and spot H2K moving in, then they're never going to get an opening to engage. At the same time for H2K, if they can't see where the enemy team is coming, there's always the risk of you getting flanked, suddenly your AD carry dies and your whole comp falls apart. And also you play this Ahri, which we know in the mid game, she wants to sit in these bushes here, assassinate people. There's going to be so much about timing objectives and who gets there first to set up the vision control.
So we did see H2K marginally ahead on the vote, as well as securing that first dragon of the game, thanks to some deep wards in the MYM jungle. A small raptor stolen away by Ryu. Tad cheeky, and I actually quite like Horo's tunnel network he's built up for himself. I think it says a lot about the jungler's playstyle based on the concentration of tunnels. Horo with a little bit of a heavier stack towards the mid lane in case of any aggression from Ryu onto Corey.
Yeah, we really want to protect this immobile Victor in the laning phase, but we can see here already for Corey now, second upgrade on the Hex Core. Obviously the Q, which is now being skilled up for him. So a lot of focus on that early mobility, no items coming in, so he's extremely squishy if you do catch him out. But because it's a Nuno jungle, he's not really feeling too afraid, honestly, and that's why he can do what he's doing now.
So 10 minutes on the clock, about to tick over, even on gold. No kills, no towers, just a lonely dragon in favor of H2K. All the lanes as even as they can be in terms of CS, but Horo, he's jumping in. Was that to defend a ward?
Yeah, he had a pink ward that Lulix was trying to clear. It's going to be the same again. Lulix is not afraid of him. He can always escape from a Rek'Sai. Just sit back and farm, protect your carries, go to late game, or at least go to mid game where Ryu can become strong on the Ahri, and you get a Trinity Force on Yanin as well.
So we'll see who's going to make use of that mid-game power spike more. You'd like to think Trinity Force Cog should do a little bit more than Jinx with the makings of an IH. But H2K, you know what, yesterday they actually had a good plan against Elements. They did get the outer towers down. The problem for H2K, they suffered losses in return. Every time they got an objective, Elements replied with one of their own. And H2K never got a sizable lead until 20 minutes. It was around 2K, and then they instantly lost in a very big team fight. So business as usual for H2K. Even at 10 minutes, they grow a lead over the preceding 10. We'll see if they can do it again.
Just as the 2 comes, who doesn't really aim to do anything in the early game. Just make it a bit of a farm fest, where the focus is more on the early warding. You can see how H2K putting all the focus on the bottom side, because your Lulu, well, Lulu is a champion who can't even get shot down, and she can still be extremely useful, so she's not the key component to this composition here from H2K. It's again more about Yanan and how well he can farm. So you have double ping ward on the side towards the bottom, and you see Lulix keep invading into the jungle here as well, place these wards. So Horo doesn't really have any lane he can gank properly. It's extremely tough for Victor to set up a gank on an Ahri with double dash. Obviously the Nala Lulu matchup, no, that's going to be a tricky one as well for him. So it's going to be a bit of a farm base for the junglers. Now, good little trade here by Rio.
Well, Farmerama seems to be the name of the day. Siphon Power Shield from Corey means he actually comes out ahead in that trade. 2 stacks on that Hex Core working in his favor. We do see Horo hanging out in the tri-bush. There's a lot of disengagement. All of the summoners available for Kissing if needed. And wisely enough, they're playing super defensively. So the longer this laning phase goes, the more comfortable both teams will be. They're waiting for item breakpoints before they look for any sort of engages. Which team comp do you prefer? At 20 minutes, at 30 minutes, at 40 minutes? Those are the big spikes, the big time scales.
Yeah, so full late game, I'm going to prefer the H2K one, simply because they have so much protection for Yanan here, and he's going to be nearly impossible to kill. Yes, there's a lot of magic damage on their side, but they still have plenty of physical just from Yanan itself, and he's going to be the guy melting people. But before that, it's so much, I know it sounds boring, but it's so much about pre-planning objectives.
Okay.
Because whoever has that vision control around the dragon when it spawns can set up the correct fight. Either it's going to be kiting from H2K or finding a flank from MYM side. So it's pretty tough to say at this point. First dragon obviously to H2K is great, and with this Lulu already investing so much into wards and just being annoying, he will be able to get to that dragon as well beforehand.
Well, that Ice Blast did a whole lot of damage from Lulix. Not obviously ranked up very much, but we did see the tower. Odoamne's done a great job in the top lane of hammering that one away. Both of these teams have played with great objective control in recent weeks. H2K probably the best objective team over the last month in Europe. And Meet Your Makers, honestly, just going from strength to strength. From a team that was bullied around at the beginning of the split, they're looking more and more like a legitimate contender.
Yeah.
As Europe always tends to have.
Well, it was a team who always had good players. I mean, Corey was never considered a bad player in the mid lane. Mr. Riders, we knew he could carry as well. JWoww had been a good addition to the team, and Horo has basically all split long performed well. They just didn't have any shot calling or teamwork. Like, that was the problem. And it's clear lately they've been getting better and better ever since Noxiac joined. The calling has been better. Yesterday, one of the reasons they managed to win against Gambit was very good decision making in some key situations, so definitely improvements for them. Question is just, is it enough, and is it in time to save yourself? Because they most likely, I think we can almost guarantee they will drop down to relegation at least, but then they get a chance.
Yeah, well, for MYM, they're currently tied 1-1 with Giants, and they're currently tied on the standings at 4-11. So for Meet Your Makers, as we've touched on, if they finish the same scoreline as Giants at the end of the split, it is a tiebreaker for automatic relegation in 10th position and a spot in the promotion tournament in 9th position. You heard Horo, he wants to avoid auto relegation. But for Meet Your Makers, if they pick up a win and build up that game buffer, the pressure is then all on Giants.
Oh, Noxiac a bit alone here, trying to fight for the control around the dragons. Here both teams have a few deep wards, obviously way deeper from H2K side, but there's one just around the blue buff of H2K placed from MYM. That's where they're going to try and set up that teleport flank.
But
from JWoww, yeah. Again, he has to time that Mega Narc correctly for it. And obviously H2K doesn't really need to go in there and do it now because they're getting pressure on the mid tower. They have obviously the top tower being poked down a lot as well. So you don't have to start the dragon on H2K side. You can wait longer, go in for a second round, clear the few wards from MYM, and then once you have full control, you can set it up.
Well, 15 minutes has just passed official. Let's touch on some item points. Spectre's Carl Hex Drinker picked up for JWoww versus the Morella Nomicon. We see Bomby Cinder, Trailblazer for Lulix is getting his way towards Cinderhulk, whereas Horo has completed that Warrior enchantment. Makings of Abyssal for Corey versus Morella Nomicon. So these big spikes are starting to work out. Noxiac does have some support from Horo. Prey Seeker's being thrown out, but I think the numbers advantage is with H2K, and this is going to be an uncontested dragon from the looks of things. So that is number 2. And H2K maintain control of the dragon pits.
Whoever pre-plans the objectives the best is gonna win this game. 2 now for H2K. Not looking good for MYM. Not really been looking to do a whole lot either. And as we have said so many times, Nuno can control a Rek'Sai really well. That's basically what happened. No real lane for him to gank. Couldn't invade into the jungle either because they haven't been winning any of the lanes, which is still one of the problems about their composition. Didn't really have any directly winning matchups. We know top tower is really low for MYM. Can be pushed down by Odoamne and Lulex if he decides to join. Same can honestly be said for every lane at this point. We know H2K likes to do it around the mid game. That's why they start going for auto turrets. Take the top lane first, then you swap down to the bottom lane, you clear that one, then you swiftly move around the map and get a few towers.
So I just took a look at the hit points. Top lane, MYM towers down to 400 hit points. Mid lane, down to around 500 hit points, and bottom lane around 2,000. So Mr. Rolls and Noxiac have done a better job at fending off the aggression with that Jinx plus Braum combo. Ryu is going to dash in Spirit Rush, flash away from Corey. There's still a Ghost available if Corey needs some sort of support. And Ryu unable to do anything with that third charge. So still no kill on the board as we're approaching 17 minutes.
This was one of the concerns, I guess, about the new patch with the tank junglers and the very late game setups. Obviously, it wasn't a problem yesterday at all. There was so much action going on. It seemed just two teams picking more for this late game. No kill pressure in the lanes, and yeah, again, it's why you have that farm fest.
That's what both of these team compositions want to do. We expected this in picks and bans. It's shining through numbers, even in top, even jungle. 15 difference in the mid lane, and even AD carry. Truthfully, there's not a whole lot to write home about. Void Rush farm alarm from Horo.
Just mention how H2K can just put Lulex in the top lane and fast push down the tower. Horo is going to go there to try and defend. It's just a few hits though, and they can keep doing this over and over and simply force Horo to sit on the top side of the map, wait for that dragon to respawn before they reposition. Obviously no real threat in any of the other lanes. I mean, now Noxiac Kissing will hit him at least. About as action-packed as it's going to get right there. But Horo though, he's coming in now. Ryu has to jump away. Both teleports.
Teleports from both top laners cancelled, in fact. Now JWoww eats a charm. Ryu's gone back in, but he's forced to flash away. That's a flash from Gnar as he gnaws Ryu and Kissing into the wall. Ryu looking like he's going down. 300 hit points as he gets the blood boil to try to run away. Absolute zero. Channel to slow everybody in place, and Ryu is still alive. At 18.5 minutes, we have no kills on the board.
They were so close here. Both top laners teleport, and then Odoamne, he cancelled because you get that top tower. He's pushing for the tier 2 as well here. Small miscommunication at first, but H2K, they got out alive here. And Lulex managed to show us his swag moves under the tower.
Got themselves that first objective and a good few hundred hit points onto that inner turret in the top lane. We're about to hit 20 minutes on the clock into Fissio. Trinity Force completed, plus a needlessly large rod Odoamne. H2K have the item advantage.
And exactly like yesterday, as soon as Yana gets the Trinity Force, or at least the Sheen, he starts moving around. He doesn't care about getting the bot lane tower. No, he wants the easy ones. Obviously, mid lane have been poked down, the top lane have been poked down earlier. So 2 quick towers, and instantly H2K is in the lead. Dragon in a few minutes. That's obviously going to be the next objective. And then they go for the bottom lane after. It's very textbook from them. And the concern is simply that MYM doesn't really seem to have any way of responding. They just used the teleport. It was a good ulti from JWoww. Oh, you just saw the power of the disengage of a Janna, of a Nunu.
Yeah.
Even an Ahri jumping around. How tough it is to take down a target.
The recipe was all there for Mecha Makers. I'm all about cooking references this week. I gotta try to get that out of my head. But we're about to hit 20 minutes, 2,000 gold lead for H2K. We broke down the numbers, we broke down the stats, and as a team, H2K are usually, in fact, 2,500 gold ahead at this point. So marginally behind their average. But they've also been held at arm's length. I think MYM have, gone even.
Sure.
Kept them on hand. But the Dragon advantage and the Tower advantage, obviously, for H2K.
And that's going to be the thing, though, for MYM here. Going later into the game, they do have a composition that scales really well. You got double tank, you got Victor, you got Jinx, so that's great. And you have a lot of burst damage from Victor and Jinx Rocket together. So if there is a misposition from H2K, then some of them will die and they can still lose the fights. It's not like guaranteed you're going to win late game with the protected AD carry comp. You really have to play it well, and so much is going to rely on Yana here and how he can play around it, because he's going to be the focus. We know a Victor late game can mill people.
Well,
Well, it's a Trinity Force,
talk
yeah.
about Hyonin, and look at the poke he's already done to Mr. Rolls. Lulex finds himself running into Noxiac and Horo in the jungle. H2K grouping up. There is an outer turret remaining. H2K do not approve, do not like that, and seem to be sending some resources to set the target in their sights.
And not only are they looking for the bot lane, they're also again looking for control around the dragon. They get it already just by keep playing the ward in this tri-bush. Now the next one is going to be this pink ward around the red buff of H2K. So if you just group together a few members, you should be able to clear that one out like they're doing now. If Rio would hit it. There we go. And they're going for Corey.
I think we're about to find out for first blood. Will it be Corey? Chaos Storm goes down. Ryu forced to get the wild growth, and it's the absolute 0 that gets the 1 on the board. Lulex then finds Koro in the jungle, and Ryu gets all of those shields. Still alive. Is JWoww forced away? Horus flashed in for this one. They've got one back. That's a massive glacial fissure as H2K get knocked in the air. Noxiac and JWoww in full retreat, but the Mega Gnar is about to pop. Playing closer and closer as Mr. Rolls joins the fight. They end up trading 1 for 1. It was Lulex that got first blood at 21.5 minutes.
That was the latest first blood. All split long. We had to wait 21 minutes. But Corey did go down. Did a lot of damage in return. Ryu was a 1-for-1 trade at least. Odoamne has teleport ready if he goes back to base. He should be able to come down and stop this dragon. But it looks like H2K come back to the lanes instead. And will give this one over to Meteor Makers despite having that teleport advantage after the fight.
So first dragon locked in rather. Well played by Meteor Makers. Officio.
That was an important one for them.
Yep, highlighted it. 6% as they scale.
And Symbiotes are just denying that potential 5th one now for H2K. Do still think H2K could have stopped it. No real reason to give that one up for free in this case. Obviously, Kiseng getting himself a Soul Stealer when there's only been 2 kills in the game. It's going to take a while to stack it.
On the bright side.
But hey, he's not going to die either.
On the bright side, a bit of commitment maybe to the aggressive plays. He did just pick it up 20 seconds ago. Nothing else really surprising itemization-wise. I think a lot of praise to Odoamne. Got that death cap completed plus the lucidity boots. Lulex getting beefier and beefier as Noxiac.
They're going Righteous Glory.
Does get caught out by that charm, but H2K unable to find anything else. And really, it's just an arms race between Meteor Makers and H2K.
It's all about killing these poor wards here. Every time, so many of them are just dying left and right. Noxiac doing his best to defend it.
Trust the ex-support main to be depressed by that statement.
Yeah. I mean, you get a special bond to these wards here. At least back in Season 3, it was the way you felt relevant in your team. Like, look guys, I'm warding, it's fine, I'm here. And then you died. Every time.
The Eye of Sauron Oracles must have been the bane of your existence.
It was.
I wonder how many of our viewers remember those times.
Back when supports only got a Sidestone and an Oracle and they were basically done. And that was, they just ran around clearing wards, putting down wards.
You wouldn't get involved. Oh, that was a little close. Wouldn't get involved in a team fight at the risk of losing your Oracles.
Oh. At least stay very far back. That's also how you got a high KDA, so...
Such primitive times we were.
It was simple. Simple times. And Sona was played as one of the best supports. How times have changed.
You never know. Always possible to have a return.
I mean, again,
Janna
Vicks are being played now, so I guess times have changed quite a lot.
Janna disappeared for a while. Returned in glorious fashion. Righteous Glory has been picked up for Lulex. It's an engaged Nunu, Deficio. I love it. Blood Boil plus Righteous. He's going to get in there and channel that absolute 0. Yeah, I'm a believer.
He's just going to allow Yanan to go crazy in the late game. Just keep feeding him everything. And he will carry the game for you. So Ryu got this bot lane tower. Swapped him down. 2 or 3 people in the crowd clapping.
It's called a golf clap.
Great, we got the tower.
But it's also, it's H2K standard.
It's what they need, it's what they have to do. I mean, they're doing everything they should do right here. Okay, except for giving up their one last dragon, but they got their 3 outer turrets, they got all the farm they need on the 80 carry, 255 CS. It's basically what they need to do in a protect the 80 carry comp.
So, Meteor Makers need to decide, do they place defensive vision and try to predict where H2K are going to be moving into the jungle, knowing the outer towers are down? Do they place focus on Baron? Do they place focus on Dragon? Or do MYM opt to go for the outer towers themselves? Because truthfully, Meteor Makers have not made a concerted effort to get H2K's towers down. There's a lot of options for both of these teams available.
Yeah.
I want to see where they prioritize their time.
The worst thing for them now is when you lose your outer turret yourself, suddenly you don't really have any way you can retreat easily. And we're against a Blood Boil, AD carry, and Righteous Lord in Nunu, you are gonna get chased and you're gonna get run down basically if you take a bad fight. So it means you have to move your wards even further up and into the entrance of the enemy jungle to properly see if they're coming from a flank. And MYM is not gonna get in that position because they simply haven't had the control. They have one ward now around the mid lane, meaning they don't really have anywhere they can go. And we can see how H2K is simply deciding with this group as 4 guys here, keep pushing it down, get a mid tower.
Trading towers 1 for 1. Inner turret secured by H2K. Top tower secured by Meet Your Makers. But you saw Glacial Fissure from Noxiac used just to try to defend against that tower going down, but it simply wasn't enough.
It's a bit unfair for him because you're going to give Whimsy as well to Yarnan. So he's insanely fast when he's moving around and the Braum is not going to be able to hit him. But what MYM has to do at this point is simply, you need to get a ward around the Baron just to make sure H2K doesn't go quickly there and you're going for Dragon. And then you gotta try and make your way to this Dragon here, properly set up a few wards and hope that H2K is feeling too confident. And then simply walk into the Dragon area, start to get that vision down themselves. And then you catch them, you win the fight, you get the second Dragon, and that opens up for you to take a tower suddenly.
You always make it sound so easy to fish.
It is definitely not easy.
Meet Your Makers group themselves up as 4 in the middle lane. H2K able to wave clear effectively enough and hold off the onslaught on the tower. Meet Your Makers backed away, and again, look at the vision. Keep your eyes on that minimap. Every few seconds, vision is going to determine who gains control of this matchup. Although, let's be fair, H2K are in control. They've got themselves a marginal lead. They are the ones forcing MYM to respond. And so far, the answer has been a whole lot of, we're not sure.
H2K have done a good job at least of forcing them away from these objectives nearly every time. There's quite a few ping wards in the jungle, so MYM here has a good route to the Dragon itself. And they got quite some poke down on Odo Amne and Lulex. Obviously Lulex is just going to consume a minion and he's fine. Yarnan fairly low in mana, so that we might see an opening for MYM to fight here. They still got to get that right engage, and you need the Mega now for
And look at the 2 side lanes as well. You've got a big minion wave built up for H2K, making its way to that inner turret. Look, Ryu's already responding. Top wave, I believe, is pushing in favor for H2K towards MYM, so that's going to be a nice slow push. Smart play from H2K in terms of managing those minions. Teleport from JWoww in that bottom lane though, so keep that in mind. If an engage were to break out, it'll take longer for Ryu to respond.
Oh, JWoww jumping in and Ryu here, trying to chunk him down. Forces ulti, then suddenly the fight is a lot easier for Meet Your Makers.
Well, Spirit Rush has to be used from Ryu just to get to safety. JWoww did have Mega Gnar popped. It is currently ticking down. That's Rage meter below half.
Down.
That's a big Glitzer launch. Monsoon is out. Noxiac, he's got him with the Glacial Fissure. Kasing is the focus, but nobody's down yet. Absolute Zero being channeled as a Gnar throws H2K against the wall. It's Ryu that drops Odo Amne. It was the members that started the fight that end the fight. Meet Your Makers remain on the Dragon as H2K are looking to re-engage. 2,000 hit points still on Dragon as it's ticking away. We do see Corey throwing out the Chaos Storm, and nobody's dropped yet. Dragon number 2 secured by Meet Your Makers, and you do see H2K picking up the kill.
I'm gonna see our lovely guys eating some more cake here. Well, again, MYM, they get what they need here. They stop that potential 5th Dragon. Did have to sacrifice JWoww for it. We saw again how hard it is. There was a lot of flashes being blown on getting that one, or trying to get that one kill. They even didn't work for them. And H2K have to now reset the whole game. So all these minions being built up in a top wave is going to be collected now by Meet Your Makers. So that was a very important play for them again. Because they would have been terrible. Had H2K stayed in that mid lane, these minions on the top side would have done a lot of work on that tower on their own. Obviously also credit to JWoww from starting that fight on Ryu, forcing his ulti.
A lot of damage down early and chased it up as well.
Yeah, but that was basically like the worst spot H2K could be in because they had to blow Janna ulti, they had to blow Ahri ulti before the fight. And yet they still win the fight itself, get that one kill. Really just shows how hard it is to get to Yarnan. And he's obviously only going to get stronger and stronger once he gets Infinity Edge. Phantom Dancer potential later. It's going to melt right through you.
Really like the Flash Fissure from Noxiac. Trying to create some disruption, but it just wasn't enough. Meet Your Makers trying to find themselves a way back into this game. We've just crossed the 30-minute mark. H2K, 4,000 gold in the lead. 3 towers the advantage. Soul Stealer paying off. 1 assist to Kasing's name.
Insane.
It is brilliant. Ryu plus Lulix actually doing a lot of work to this tower. It is 5.5, so no longer got that 200 hit point shield.
Got 300 more HP though. But yeah.
That it does, that it does.
That's very true.
Does manage to take out the tower very easily.
Fast pushing you can do when you have a Nunu jungle, Blood Bowling and AD carry. Another good setup. When you push the mid lane, you push the bottom lane. Because you know you're stronger, you can very easily just take the short route through the enemy jungle and down to push the tower before they can move around and defend. Another well-executed play from H2K. And really, again, it's all about towers, it's all about wards, it's all about playing safe. Because H2K here, they obviously want to show that despite them losing yesterday to Elements, then they are still one of the top teams here in Europe. With SK and Fnatic both winning their games, H2K can't really afford to fall further behind if they want to reach top 2.
That's definitely the case. At the moment, H2K, 10 wins, 5 losses on the split. They are setting themselves up for a potential tie-breaker matchup with Fnatic. H2K are 0-1 against Fnatic, but they're 1 game behind. So if you assume the records are similar and H2K beat Fnatic, you could have a tiebreaker for that second seed, that second automatic berth into the semi-finals.
So MYM right now
championship points.
Need to start reading their waves a lot better. They saw Ryu walk all the way up to the middle of this top lane here, bounce back the wave and start pushing it down, and nobody has reacted before now. So this tower is gone as well. They're moving a little bit too slowly, but Jaguar is now teleported behind in mini Gnar. Let's see if he can do anything.
Well, we'll see if they can make it work. 5 members of H2K in full retreat. Gnar is charging. Noxiac gets chunked way down. He is down before the Glacial can even get out. Absolute Zero used to zone out members of Nature Makers on the left, while the rest of H2K are running down the Gnar. That tiny little dinosaur's trying to get away, forced to hop to safety. There's a massively flying past Chahan, and they do manage to get the single kill. A little bit messy, but once again H2K with the team fight win. Mega Gnar timing not working out again in recent patches.
And Kasing getting a second stack on that
second
Soul Stealer. Keep following it. Baiting up the Baron now. Scrying up is on cooldown for Raleigh, so they're gonna have to face Jake.
Well, insta flash from Corey. Doesn't want to get caught out. You do see the gravity field. You see the Chaos Storm coming out. Lulix dropped down to about 1,500 HP. Hyonin gets killed by the Zap as the Monsoon is used to regen everyone. But lack of engage, lack of CC. H2K can't find MYM. MYM can't stick to H2K because of the disengage. You have these prolonged, awkward fights. Oh, Ryu jumps over the wall. Does manage to stay alive. Still holding on to the flash. Catches the charm onto Jawa. Jawa about to go Mega Gnar. Horo knocks Ryu up in the air. Flash still available from Ryu. Not even going to use it. Did it the last second. Not going to be enough though. Now H2K are in trouble. They're split up. Hyonin's been exhausted. Fisher's knocked him up. They're trying to take him out and he's down. Mr. Rolls has got himself a double. And Meteor Makers have cracked this game wide open as they set their sights on Baron.
Yo, why did H2K just start the Baron here? They got 1 kill on the support who'd already respawned and they were down 0 mana and Yanin. A lot of the members were pretty low on HP as well. And then they start their Baron here a little bit too greedy. They don't have to. Don't worry, you got a fantastic late game already. Let's see it again. Ryu jumping in his own, realizing there's already 4 guys. We see Noxiac has already rejoined his team. And everyone from H2K already taking quite a lot of damage of being very low on mana. So this gave an opening, at least for MYM, to get a few kills. Not sure they got any objective. They didn't get the Baron, and Dragon hadn't spawned yet either. So you might see another fight for that one. But there's a lot of summoners as well blown from H2K, giving MYM an opening they shouldn't be able to get.
You know, just one of the weaknesses of H2K's comp. If they're not there to stack and layer all of that disengage, they need to protect Hyonin. Did not work out. So H2K was a little bit of control, but as you rightly pointed out, MYM in fact did not go for the Baron, didn't commit to the risky play.
Kasing lost some stacks. Not looking good on that little kill.
Really not cool. 0-1-3. He's still got 5 stacks though.
Yeah,
right?
he's
Unless
fine.
my math
He's
is
still fine.
Horrible.
Still fine.
Yeah. So he's still in a good position. Got himself the Ardent Sensor as well, an item we don't see a whole lot.
I'm gonna make a prediction. He's gonna end the game on 20 stacks.
Okay. And at what time is that? Come on.
When the game's over.
You hung out. No. Come on. You hung out with the Prophet himself. Crumbs would expect a bigger effort from you. Right. 20 stacks at roughly
52 minutes.
Okay. Hashtag that. 20 stacks, 52 minutes. According to Deficio, we're talking about Kasing. We'll see if he can make that work. At the moment, H2K 4,000 gold lead. Still got a 5 tower advantage, 1 dragon advantage. But H2K have slowed down just a little, and MYM, they keep looking to start those team fights.
H2K can just go back to pushing well. So I guess the problem for them now is you got all the outer turrets down, so you can no longer play around the minion control really well. You can no longer play around enemy, or well, taking over the enemy jungle, which is what they've done, taking down these outer turrets, simply just being way better at looking at the side lanes and knowing when to go push a tower than MYM has been to defend them. So now when it's the base, you have to open up. There's no longer that, you know, short the distance advantage in moving between towers, meaning they have to, or feel like they have to force these objectives. I don't think they have to, honestly. You can still go down towards the tower with 5 members, get Yanan in with a few hits on a tower every time, and there's still no hard engage on MYM to jump you.
Yeah, especially with Blood Boil as well as the Ardent Sensor passive. I mean, Kasing's got that plus 25% attack speed, rather, on shields and heals. Deficio, what's your take on the item? We don't see it all too often, but it works in this style of comp.
I mean, normally I think it's a horrible item, but seeing as again, you are protecting your AD carry, and you can want to buff mob even more, I guess in that case it does make sense for Kasing.
Well, Oro's in trouble, does manage to get the face of the mountain shield. Glacial Fissure used to defend him. There's the Spirit Rush from Ryu. They run him down. MYM unable to protect their jungler, as their team comp is simply not built to do the same thing. H2K, 1 man to the good, setting up in the Death Bush. These Meet Your Makers wondering, pondering, dreaming. Is there a Baron? Noxiac dashes over to the teammate. Remember, no Fissure available. Megadar is about to pop, and H2K peel away and back away. Kasing got another stack on his Soul Stealer. And we'll see if he can hit that 20 and 52.
14 more to go, yeah.
20 and 52, that was the prediction.
H2K backstarting this Baron here. They really don't have to keep forcing, but
whoa!
Need to get a kill for it. In this case, it works out. Now they're just gonna get it as well. So all they were doing is just simply waiting, baiting MYM to come in and trying to stop it, and then they would pick up a kill. I get worried the game might not go to 52 minutes.
Well, H2K gonna secure Baron, 38-15. 1 more stack for Kasing, 0-1-5. Getting slowly closer and closer. With Baron and the ability to just shred towers with Hyanan's Godmode, H2K surely have to start setting up the siege. They're sitting on a lot of unspent gold. If you actually take a look at it, 2,500 for Ryu, 2,000 for Hyanan. Ryu's actually once again Spirit rushed in. Tower is being melted, down to half. Mr. Rolls dropped in HP, and it looks like they've got the objective.
And see what Ryu's doing here. He's just jumping in to get all the focus on him, allowing Yanan to just hit the tower. Yanan didn't hit anyone else. Just go straight for tower here, buff him up anyway. You got that insane OP Ardent Sensor to give him even more attack speed, and then he just destroys the tower. So Ryu just buying a bit of time, being a good teammate here, drawing all the focus as well. So that was a very quick tower. No kills though.
Do you see the strategy? Throw the Orb of Deception to run to the farm wave quicker. And this is some gorgeous, gorgeous farm.
Oh, can he defend the tower?
I don't know, that's low. Couple more hits. Hey!
Ah, it's alive.
16 hit points. You see, if Ryu had not used those Orbs of Deception to run there quicker, that tower would have gone down.
All right.
Next level, ladies and gentlemen.
Just don't do it all the time if you run out of mana, guys. Quick tip, I tried it in solo queue.
I love solo queue stories with Deficio. Some of my favorite.
I've gotten to play some pretty cool games. People are very nice when I'm playing with them, so I like that. Unless I'm playing with Panky. And it all goes wrong.
Well, we'll expand on that later. 40 minutes. H2K continue to grow their lead, continue to maintain control of the game. Massive, massive items picked up. JWoww got that Frozen Mallet, Void Staff, the makings of what I expect to be an Hourglass from Corey. From that Need to See Large Rod, and Last Whisper was picked up. Corey is down 6 stacks on Kasing's Magi's. We are tracking this 12 minutes to get the remaining 12 and see if we can make Deficio mini profits. I'm not a big believer though, as Odoamne is pushing top, the rest of H2K are pushing bottom, and Supers are doing the work in the middle.
I'm not believing either. After they got that Baron, that was really the opening for them to just start pushing down on the tower here. So H2K really just been playing it well. They've been doing everything they should do, not taking any chances except for maybe starting one of those Barons. And that's been the only one. The rest they managed to secure properly.
Deficio, something is starting to sink in for Meet Your Makers and the players. If they lose this game, they are 100% out of playoff contention. For Meet Your Makers to even stand a chance, they need to magically find a way to pull this back, but it's not looking likely. Kyonan is tearing Meet Your Makers apart. The base is destroyed, and it's looking like Meet Your Makers are done.
There's really no way of getting to Yanin. Still no flash here, I guess, for JWoww. Horror can go in, and they're going in for him now.
Well, let's take a look. Glacial Fissure thrown down to split across the team. Absolute Zero channeled and does Absolutely Zero. Ryu does find Horo on the back line, but they've traded Jungler for Jungler.
Yanin's
Next
down.
victim, Yanin's down. Meet Your Makers managed to hold off, defending against 5 of H2K. But with multiple waves of super minions, this is going to be another crack defense if they want to survive this game. It really is a matter of time before H2K group up and use those super minions to their advantage, especially with Dragon number 4 about to be secured.
Yeah, the thing is there's no locket on the side of H2K, not a whole lot of MR protection, at least for Yanin, to stop all the damage from Corey. That's obviously where you would normally gone for the locket instead of Ardent Sensor. You could have gone for the kills as well, in case Yanin should get stunned at any point. But let's see what happens. Noxic jumps in first, bolts towards Kasing and Lulix, which is the 2 supports, so not the best ulti from him. And obviously the flash onto Yanin. He stays alive at first, but now look at the damage coming in from Corey once he finally gets to him. The ulti's there on all 4 members. That was beautiful. And then just a Q auto attack to secure the kill. Luckily, Kasing stayed alive and saved the stacks.
7 assists for Kasing, 9 stacks and 10 minutes to find 11 more. Unless he kill steals.
That's what we need.
Unless he kill steals.
I mean, you do get, how much is it? 25 AP or 40 AP on the Ardent Sensor, so you can double your kills to a little bit more effective.
He's got that Ignite as well. We'll see if it works out. H2K on the verge of keeping a top 2 position alive. Meet Your Makers on the verge of being knocked out of playoff contention entirely. It is what was expected, let's also be fair.
Yeah, I don't think they were expecting to reach playoffs.
Correct.
They made it very clear it's
In
about
Europe,
surviving now.
Stranger things have happened.
It's true.
So Super Minions barreling into the base, double from each of the respective lanes. H2K got 3, 4 auto attacks onto the Nexus turret. It's down to a third of the hit points. Noxiac, he was the man that jumped onto Kyonan last time with an early exhaust. Not available yet for the team. And H2K actually not 100% committing to this Nexus turret, respecting the engage from Meet Your Makers. Meganar's about to time out though, as we see Corey, he's timed out as he just gets destroyed. Noxiac is the focus of a few auto attacks. JWoww not going to be able to transform for a while. Mr. Rolls gets jumped on by Ryu as the turret lasers are doing the best they can to defend. We do see that Ice Blast getting caught out. Kyanan's dive all the way to the back. He's flashed forward for this one, letting the Super Minions do the work while H2K keep MYM on the Nexus turret. After 45 minutes, Deficio is proven wrong. H2K win the game and crush Meet Your Makers' playoff dreams.
Fairly simple game, honestly, here for H2K. We talked about how MYM didn't really have any clear way of engaging on H2K at any given time, and only once H2K was standing at the Baron, we saw an opening for Meet Your Makers. Otherwise, all about farming up, all about the objectives, towers, the dragons, and of course the vision control. That was basically the name of the game.
Well played from H2K. Much safer, much cleaner matchup than yesterday's game against Elements. Playing to the strengths of their team composition, and you know, it is also good to see some big smiles on the side of Meet Your Makers. Despite the fact, despite the loss, they can still avoid that automatic relegation.
Just by beating Gambit yesterday, that was all they needed, because now you look at the way Giants have been playing lately as well, a bit the same as MYM. You're not expecting them to take down the top teams, and suddenly we might have that tiebreaker at the end of the split. I know Meet Your Makers is going to have to face Rocket next week, which is also going to be one of those matches down the bottom here, trying to avoid relegation and everything.
Very, very tough matchup indeed. So H2K Gaming, 1-1 on the week. Their incredible winning streak was broken yesterday.
Yeah, it would have been 10 wins now.
It would have been. It would have broken the all-time record. Fnatic still maintain the 9-game streak that was set in 2013.
Spring split.
2013.
Long
That's
time
how long
ago.
it goes.
A long time ago.
Many have tried. Many have made 8, in fact.
Yeah,
a lot of European teams
for some
have hit
reason,
8s.
whenever you're on 8, you just lose.
Yep.
No matter what happens.
Can't pass
You
it.
will lose, and that's how it is. Gambit did it, H2K, SK Gaming. A lot of teams this year has been close.
I think Alliance did it last year as well in summer.
Yeah,
So.
same deal.
All right, let's quickly take a look at the standings in Europe after that matchup, because as we have said, Meet Your Makers are now out of playoff contention. They are the first of the bottom 6 teams, we can say that absolutely certainly. If Elements win later today versus Gambit, MYM are in a relegation one way or the other. So that will be in the promotion tournament or obviously that automatic relegation, depending on how things pan out with Giants. So, you know, we heard at the beginning of the day, Horror saying, we don't want to be automatically relegated.
Yeah.
And they seem to be playing better. That was a fairly cohesive MYM. It just wasn't enough to get over H2K.
And it's always hard to judge when you watch the Challenger Series. What's the level there between some of the teams? How will they stack up against MYM in this situation here from the LCS? So obviously, even though you had problems, even though you have been one of the worst teams in the league, it's not over once you go to relegation. We have seen time and time again the EULCS team re-qualify. I remember Copenhagen was last year, ended up as number 8, last spot in the league, and then 3-0'd H2K to get back in the LCS, and it was very one-sided game, so it's definitely not over for Meet Your Makers.
It's interesting, right? Copenhagen Wolves in particular is one of my favorite promotion tournament teams, because for some reason, they find gears to perform at a level that they had not found on the stage before. This is the first split in a long time that I think the Copenhagen Wolves have been consistently above average for the majority of the split.
Yeah, they've been a stable mid-team.
Yep.
They lose to teams above them and they beat the teams under them. It's that simple.
Middle of the pack squad.
So it is like they're right there, like number 5, number 6, and it's where they belong. They are still in the risk of dropping out of playoffs, because now Elements at least won the game yesterday, and we see Copenhagen Wolves play Fnatic later today, which is going to be such an important game. Because if Fnatic wins, suddenly the Copenhagen Wolves, it's going to be risky. And it would be awesome for them to get into the playoffs. They've been there once, then they lost, and had to face Gambit in the 5th place match, and also lost that one.
Yeah, I remember that quite fondly. Well, let's take a step back and talk again about H2K. We've discussed excessively about MYM and the fact they're now no longer in playoffs. For H2K, 11 wins, 5 losses. Fnatic, 11 wins, 4 losses. And again, H2K and Fnatic will be playing each other. So there's the possibility of them ending on a similar scoreline. After yesterday's loss and after today's victory, we've both said H2K were the best team in Europe at the beginning of this week.
Yeah.
Do you still stand by that?
I think it's impossible to say in the new patch. I need to see more on 5.5. I've not been too impressed yet with what they're doing, but they're still running the same style. Again, against Elements, they got a few towers down early. They did everything they should early on before that fight at 19 minutes, which basically cost them the entire game. This one here, it wasn't exciting, but that's how you play and protect the AD carry comp. You focus on getting towers down, you focus on getting these objectives early, nothing else. You don't have to go and fight. So that's why the game was fairly slow, but also safe from them. And it just means slowly, and now at least, it means they're going to have a week more adapting to 5.5, and then they can come back and look fantastic again like they did before, because that's the fastest average win time.
Yep.
On the
36 minutes across all of the games
5.3.
leading up to yesterday. So this doesn't include yesterday's games, but leading up to yesterday, 36 minutes, the lowest average time in the league.
So leading up to this week, they were the best team. Now, on new patch, we're going to have to see more.
Yeah, we'll have to find out if H2K can continue that strong performance. And for a closer look at that win, we're going to send it over to Shox at the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot. We're here with H2K's Yarnan and the man behind the curtain, Prolly. Nice tie, by the way, Prolly.
Thank you very much. I chose it myself.
Yep, I know. I was there when you actually stole the tie. No, that's not true. We gave it to you.
Yeah, it's not stealing because I'll give it back.
No. Well, looking great anyway, and congratulations on that win. Talk me through the adaptations coming in after yesterday versus that Elements game that just went away due to basically one bad fight.
So the changes that we made was mostly the jungle change and kind of how we approached the game. Because initially we really liked dragon fights and us initiating them. And we realized the way people are picking is like Annie and stuff like that, and like Leona aren't being picked as much. So people are going for more like disengaged comps, which is like really aggravating to play against. So when we saw their picks, we realized like, okay, they really lack engaged, kind of like we did yesterday. So we, instead of us picking more engaged to kind of catch them, we're like, well, let's just make it so this guy never dies and then he gets farm and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So your plan was just to never fight basically until Kog'Maw is really strong and just go for the late game when it's impossible for you to lose.
Well, it's not never fight, but it's like when fights start well, we can continue them. But like I think the one at like Dragon, we actually started losing a bit, so that's where our comp prospers, because it's like, oh, the fight wasn't going well, let's run. But if the fight started going, well, it's like, okay, we can actually stay in this because we actually had good chase and stuff. But it was mostly like when things go bad, we have a good escape button.
Yeah. And I'm getting on to you guys why you are so good, and I think it's because of the vision. Like you guys were like no other team in Europe. It's just insane to see how much vision you have at all times. Like, what's your role with that, or you just tell your players to get wards, get side stones, or they do it by themselves?
Yeah, that's my coaching. Guys buy wards. No, I mean, it is really all Kasing and Lulex mostly. They do a lot of work with that. The kind of influence I have with that is a lot of times there's only one way to get vision, and that's either by like grouping or by sending like the jungler support duo to do it together. Because a lot of teams will have someone who knows how to ward, like the support, but the jungler doesn't know how, so now the support can't go out and work because he doesn't have a buddy. So I basically am like, all right, you can get vision here. And they're like, yeah, I can get vision here. I'm like, then go together. Like, so I kind of push them to play together more often, I guess.
Yeah, and in this game, it was also essential for you guys to stay together, because if you didn't, that was actually the one time that you ended up losing a fight around Baron, I believe it was. And Hjarnan, you are, of course, an essential component in that comp. How was it playing for you? Because you have all that protection, but it almost feels counter-natural, I can presume, to run in like a Kog'Maw and run so far forward.
Yeah, but with the Lulu speed, and they didn't have a lot of gap closer, so it's pretty easy to just... all I need to be afraid of in that team comp is basically Victor's burst. And in their base, when I had 3 inhibs, we wanted to end, I was like, okay, whatever, and I would go a bit YOLO, and then I died. But that was the first time, or the only time in the game I did that. I managed to get caught by Victor, so... But if I don't get caught by Victor, it's like, yeah, it's fine.
So you're playing with essentially 3 supports for you, and your support even went as far as getting a crappy item like Argent Sensor just to boost you a bit more. Like, do you feel like God himself playing with that comp, or do you just feel really nervous because you know all the weight is on your shoulders?
It's not that hard to play Kog'Maw with 3 supports. You just get the speed up from Lulu, you go do 3 autos, 1 guy dead, and yeah. So that's basically it.
Yeah, Kasing also had the Magi's. He didn't get to 20 stacks though, even though the Fish predicted he would. Looking ahead for you guys, obviously that bump in the road yesterday. Next week you guys are playing Fnatic as well, and it'll be very important in the battle for 2nd place because you have to win versus them to at least tie the record. So how are you looking forward to the next week and then playoffs after that probably?
Hopefully next week we'll get to do a lot of like theory crafting and actually try to bring up something kind of innovative, because if you saw like this week, I think a lot of teams are kind of like shooting in the dark to find out what's good. So in this next week, we're going to try really hard to figure out what's actually OP and what's just like, flavor of the week. And hopefully by next week, we'll figure it out either faster or we'll just figure out something that no one else has yet.
That'll be super exciting to see. Thank you guys very much, and congratulations, H2K. Now, coming up in just a few minutes is a clash between Fnatic and the Unicorns of Love. The Unicorns of Love need every win they can get if they want to lock down a playoff spot. So stick around and see what happens.
Yeah, it's good.
But your audio
so
is
low.
absolutely terrible.
On the right. Better now.
On the right.
I had it.
You guys can't hear me, or
oh
I'm
my
too loud?
God. We can. I said yes.
Still alive is JWoww forced away. Horus flashed in for this one. They've got one back. That's a massive Glacial Fissure as H2K get knocked in the air. He's got him with the Glacial Fissure. Kasing is the focus, but nobody's down yet. Absolute Zero being channeled as a throws H2K. Mr. Alls gets jumped on by Ryu as the turret lasers are doing the best they can to defend. We do see that Ice Blast getting caught out. Hjarnan's dive all the way to the back. H2K win the game and crush Meet Your Maker's playoff dreams.